Soulful Sauna, Stories of Self-Mastery. Thank you for joining us. It is you, the viewer, that makes this podcast. Your host, Juliette Noske, and her guests are here to share stories of self-mastery, to inspire you and ignite the power of positive change on your own journey. Thank you for being with us. Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is the Soulful Sauna podcast, and today we have a wonderful special guest, and her name is Hannah Jewell. Hannah is a certified and accredited provider of training in Polarity Therapy, Relaxation Therapies, Reiki, and also Somatics. She holds a PhD in Ritual and Somatic Studies, where her specialism focus is on the Sufi path and the human embodiment of transformation and unfolding. And that's in fact where I had the pleasure of meeting Hannah, was at a talk about Sufism, and it was just so held in love and in the heart space and so beautiful. And that's why I chose to invite her on the show. And yeah, she has her first book came out 2 winters ago, and it brings together Sufi and the indigenous teachings, which address our collective transition in consciousness and sustainability. And it will also be released on ebook platforms as well. And yeah, it's very exciting to have you here, Hannah. Welcome.
Thank you, Juliette. It's so lovely to be here. I so enjoyed the moment when we met, and it's just delightful to catch up with you.
Thank you. So for those not watching on YouTube, you won't notice, but we're in our posh saunas today with beautiful views outside. And I'd love to know, Hannah, I'm curious, do you have a sauna experience or a sauna memory at all?
Gosh, I have so many. I just love saunas and hot springs. Growing up in California, I spent a lot of time in the hot springs. And then when I moved to the UK, I really loved using the sauna all winter long. There was one winter, it was just freezing, and I was getting up in the mornings to go to saunas several days a week before the day started. And one day I just got up and went straight down there really early, still tired, got into this tiny little sauna, closed my eyes. And then I realized at some point that I was surrounded by all these tattooed, pierced, gravelly men, all in Speedos. I started listening to their conversation, and it turns out they were old timers who had worked on the docks in the old days when our goods used to come on boats from across the channel and around the world. And they were swapping stories about counting bananas and moonshine and stowaways. That was such a delightful and unexpected sauna experience.
Yeah. And I think it's true, isn't it? You meet people that you would not necessarily cross on your daily path, and your eyes are opened to these new and different worlds, which, although they're different, they're also say the same in some ways. They're other humans on their path, on their journey, and you kind of realize that even though they're in a different world, we're all the same.
Absolutely. You know, every culture has its way of purification through sweat, be that the hammam in the Middle East or the temescal, the sweat lodge, and the saunas up in Europe where they jump into the frozen lakes.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's something about when we come together to purify that opens us and lets us connect in new ways. That's one of the most beautiful things about the sauna. And so this moment to connect with you is such a joy.
Thank you. So you said you're from California, and as far as I can understand from our conversation before, as far as I remember, you've been slightly nomadic in a way, and you've moved around a bit. Which countries have you ventured to?
Let's see, I was born in the middle of America in the Midwest. As a young child, I spent some years in Germany, and I have been resident in Mexico for a bit and here in the UK. And I think it was just such a beautiful thing to have grown up in California, where the landscape is so epic. And our movement around the state of California really inspired me. And as a young person, I went across America 5 times on road trips. And that is so deep in my embodiment of who I am. Those long roads, those beautiful sunsets, sleeping under stars, going days without seeing somebody sometimes, it's just cool.
Yeah. And what is it that draws you to England? I heard you spoke about the nature there and the landscapes, the epic landscapes. What is it that drew you to England?
Well, it certainly wasn't the landscape, but I have grown to love this landscape. It just took a few years because the winter is so dark and the summer is so light, and that was new for me. It took a while to adjust, but now I find it very beautiful here. And I came with a partner who is now an ex-partner, and he was working here, and I decided to study here. And so that's how I got into the academic path. I did my master's in the anthropology of the body, and then discovered Sufism there through one of my lectures. And following that path, chose to do a PhD on my Sufi initiation because honestly, because it gave me an opportunity to study it in so much depth. And I had those years where I could read context and history and different theories, as well as interview people and meet different Sufis around the world. And I just got to expose myself to such a wide variety, and that assisted my inner search.
Yeah. And talking about your inner search, when do you think that was there a key moment or a time when your journey of self-mastery began, your journey of this seeking and this searching to learn and grow as a person?
Yeah, I mean, the key moment for me, I always go back to when I was 11 years old, and I decided to read the Bible cover to cover, which is a pretty big undertaking. But I grew up in a really religious home, and I said, I need to know exactly what's in there for myself. And at the end of that sort of self-led study, I determined that who these people were and the teachings that they brought, especially Isa or Jesus, that full picture wasn't being given to me through religion. And so that prompted me to study everything I could. And I read so many Native American creation stories and mythologies. Later led me to meet these people and work with them. I read all about the path of connection to nature and Druidism. I didn't decide to walk that path myself, but I learned a lot in those readings. Buddhism, anything I could find. And so my journey has really been one of which truths move across all of these traditions. And when you find it everywhere, I can really count on that. that it's a universal truth. And then what's cultural, what's specific to a certain period of time or a certain outlook of a people. And this is fascinating to me as well. And I think we know ourselves through the mirroring of others. And that can happen, in person. We're mirroring each other here. But also for me, it happened through that scholarly sort of search and finding myself in the mirror of many different traditions through study.
Beautiful. What would you say to someone else who has maybe just begun that journey of seeking and, realizing that they're on this journey of self-mastery?
I feel something that has carried me through and will continue to carry me through, because our journey never really ends until our last breath. Is just a really sweet clarity to trust yourself, to trust your intuition, to trust the way that you understand, to trust the way things move in your life. And teachers are fabulous. I love my teachers dearly. They have been so important to me. But a teacher is not there to tell you how you feel or to tell you what to do. A teacher is there to wake up the latent potential in you, to wake up your humanity, to wake up your soul. And then how you walk that and your choices, that has to come from you, from trusting yourself. This is an ancient maxim as well, to know yourself. We find it in the Delphic oracles and in many teachings. And so this is the number one foundation stone, I think, of the human transformational process.
Yeah. Yes, to know thyself. That's been a huge part of my journey, certainly. And I remember many times, following one path and then following another path, and then just continuing on that kind of way until one day I realized that it's going inwards for me, and to connect with myself and my truth. And like you said, all of these wonderful teachers or wonderful teachings out there are amazing and have helped me so much and so greatly as well. But in the end, to go inwards and to question what serves me, which way for me is my truth.
Absolutely. And nobody can make that decision but you.
Yeah.
A
lot of people, actually, clients and people that come to my women's circles, they'll often ask me, how do you know when to trust yourself? And it's a constant question that I come up against, or not come up against, but that is kind of asked of me, is how do I know? How will I feel that? What would be your wise words on that?
For me, part of my healing journey has been to trust and know my body as a woman's body. And we're in this time of the feminine rising, and I feel that the way of logic and understanding and reason is important. But for me, the way of understanding when I can trust myself comes through, I call it like the barometer, which is the way you measure temperature. So the barometer of my nervous system and the barometer of my proprioception, which is the feeling sense that orients us in space. If something is coming up behind you as a feeling, to pay attention to it. For me, that's a feeling of pause and wait. If something is coming up like a good warmth in my heart or my womb, that's a good feeling. That's one to trust. If a loneliness or a fear comes, to really anchor that. Oh, can I feel my feet? Is this related to the moment? What is this bringing up for me? And then from that place, the true knowledge of that particular moment can come through. Whatever decision needs to be made or insight wants to reveal itself. So I really trust the way that my body speaks to me. And the heart is like enigmatic. We hear this everywhere, follow your heart. But what does that mean? And then when we start to want to listen to the body, anyone who has been through a great deal of trauma, that's a process of learning what the body is saying. And you're right, especially all of us women who are learning to trust our ways of knowing what's relevant to the moment, what's a past, what's an ancestral and inherited feeling. So to really work with following the heart and following the intuition, that way, stillness is my guide. Yeah. And when stillness enters, then that's a moment of truth. And to give it the space, we don't reach stillness in 30 seconds,
Yeah.
So often I will let a question, a need to understand something, just sort of rest within me and let it take days for the truth of it and the answer to come, or sometimes even longer. So for me, the feminine wisdom is in not rushing our understanding and giving it the space for that stillness to emerge. That's the only place that I really see the heart with like the tone of the singing bell or the ringing of the bell in the sky, is when I give room for that stillness to speak through the heart. Well, thank you for asking.
Yeah, I definitely went, as soon as you said stillness, I was like, yes, because my words are often to create stillness and silence as well, or pause, and I think that's beautiful what you said about, the questions that you ask yourself and how do you listen to the heart, because often, like you say, these things are spoken about and we know them up here, but we haven't necessarily come into our heart to feel it and practice. It's I often say it's like a muscle. So this is like a muscle. We know, but we need to remember how to, and by practicing it more and more, you'll begin to feel more certainty with what comes up for you. But definitely making space for it.
Yeah, absolutely. How do you make space for your heart?
Me personally?
Yeah.
So, one on my journey, I did a 3-day workshop, seminar, whatever you want to call it, and it was during that I realized that who I am is love. And I always say it's more like it's because in English we only have one word for love, but in Greece and other places they have more words, agape, and different words for different kind of types of love in a way. But I always say like the Mother Teresa love. So I realized that who I am is this well, this fountain of love. And that was, I mean, I was flying so high I couldn't cross the road, and my friend actually had to pull me back, but it was since then that I've had a deeper connection to my heart, and definitely through creating space for quiet and silence and stillness in meditation. Yeah,
I really appreciate the way you're talking about the different kinds of love. And how you brought in Mother Teresa. In California, we had the missions that were built by the Spanish. And there's a whole convoluted, history with that, how they basically enslaved the indigenous people to work in the missions, etc. But on another level, the missions were a place where you could find peace. As I grew up and that particular history had passed, in the busyness of cities, the missions were there. And I found that as a young person, I could go sit in them and find stillness. It was a place where there were trees growing and the world could stop. And in one mission, Mission de San Miguel, they had a beautiful area dedicated to Mother Teresa. And I picked up a book about her and it said, "Love until it hurts." And that was another key moment for me as a very young teenager, like maybe 14, to understand that you could love until it hurts. And that later matured. And I have found in my path that all these metaphors of the fine wine, of the vine becoming the maturity within us, the seasoning, the deepening, that these all relate to love, and that we season in our relationship to love. So how we understand love at 20 is far different than how we understand it at 40. And it's going to be far different once we reach 80 or 90. Our embodiment of love is always going to deepen when we give it the time and space. And what is it to love until it hurts? Women who are just finding their voice, there's a need for like a powerful kind of love that can break through barriers, like a Durga, a Kali, a powerful kind of embodiment of love. And that can feel like it hurts. But more these days, I understand love until it hurts as absolute surrender. And this is very much on the Sufi path, the place where we can take our warrior, our wounded child, our need, and we can lay it on the altar of love and completely surrender it. And for me, this opens up this kind of ecstatic, exquisite beauty, which is so beautiful that it aches. To be with this level of beauty and this embodiment of love is for me currently where I understand love until it hurts. I don't know what love until it hurts will mean again in another 20 years, but at this moment, it's all about surrender. Surrender the whole.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And it resonates and it reminds me of the story that you told about the nightingale. And when the nightingale pressed his chest up to the thorn, and that was the only way that there were going to be roses for the man who had wanted to give a rose to his true love. And it really reminds me of that story that you told. So beautiful.
Yes, that story is by Oscar Wilde, and he was inspired by the teachings of Rumi. We know Rumi was a Sufi from the 12th century whose unfolding moved him from scholarly to ecstatic embodiments. And I guess we can see that mirrored in my own journey as well, the scholarly seeking and then the ecstatic embodiment opening through that Sufi expression of whirling and music. And so, yeah, Oscar Wilde's response to Rumi was this story about the nightingale and the rose. And yeah, isn't it touching to press your heart against the thorn of the rose, and that's the only way the rose can bloom and its fragrance can come through, is to allow that piercing.
Yeah. And so your journey of Sufism, what would you say? So when did you first find out about Sufism? You mentioned that you were exploring all different teachings, and what was it? Was it a book that you read about Sufism, or was it someone that you met, or something that you attended? Where did that journey begin to unfold?
That journey began in one of the lectures I attended as part of my master's degree at the University of Roehampton. They presented the Sufi whirling as a movement form that had been repressed because it was made illegal for quite a long period in Turkey, between 1927, I believe, or 23, and 1957. And they presented, the context a little bit about Sufi whirling and the context of a government. And I went up to the lecturer afterwards and I said, so if it's a movement form that was repressed, then it migrated. That's what movement forms do. They never die. And if it migrated, then it's going to be here in London because we're one of the major centers in the world. So where can I find it? And she said, you're very astute. And she recommended me to a place. And the first time that I witnessed the Mevlevi Sema, or ritual of whirling, I knew that it would be a part of my life because it combined that movement and that embodiment and prayer and the container of ritual and sacred space. It combined all of that in one. And there was no way I was going to be kept away from that. I've learned to meditate, and I've learned to have that stillness grow within me where meditation is really comfortable. But back in those days, I was younger and I needed to move to find my stillness. And the whirling opened that door for me. And it was the practice of whirling which carried me into the deeper embodiments. So we all enter in different ways. Some of us will enter through the mind, through the body, through the breaking open of the heart, through big experience, whatever we need. And for me, that quietness came through the body. And so for many years, I whirled every day, sometimes many hours a day even. And it was only after many years of whirling that one day I finally said, okay, I'm ready to learn the prayers. I'm ready to learn the songs. And then the journey got to deepen even more. So yeah, musicians enter through music, and then the embodiment can open for them later. And some people meditate right away in stillness and prayer from a young age. So I think all of the paths in our period of time that we live in, we probably want to experience all of the flavors, the physical, the big experience, the stillness of meditation, and then eventually we settle.
Yeah. Yeah, I relate in many ways with my yoga journey. I was in London, having been out of the country 5 years, and it was October and dark, and there was an advert for hot. It was Bikram yoga, hot, and I was attracted to it because it was hot and it would keep me fit. And that was very much the doorway that I opened, that I went through, was to be hot and to be physically fit. And then of course I went into the depths of, what yoga really is. And having studied it for 3 years with Bikram yoga, intensely, every day, if not twice a day, I then moved to Shivananda yoga, which is a lot more traditional. And yeah, they embody all of yoga in its wholeness. And so yeah, it was very much that way for me. And I think that's one reason why I still teach in gyms sometimes, because you never know whose heart's going to be touched and opened, and that might be the beginning of their journey, and who knows where they'll go from there.
Absolutely. When you just said heart, it sounded a lot like hot. The desire to be hot. Wow, how beautiful, because that led to the desire for the heart.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I love when we can really come to the place of non-judgment and ease, and really love and compassion for every stage of the journey. Rumi says every stage of love must be honored.
Yeah.
We can't be more mature than we are. All we can do is take one step at a time. Mashallah. Yeah. Sometimes we can only see one step ahead.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, we can have an open heart and still be hot.
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah.
So you have a wonderful little video as well, The Woman Who Whirls. Yeah, I saw that, and it really inspired me. I definitely like to try out whirling. I've been teaching mindfulness and meditation for years, and I often share with people when I'm teaching that you don't have to be sat down, and I often talk about the whirling dervishes, and I think I'd love to experience it for myself. I think, did we do it a little bit at the workshop? We didn't, did we?
We didn't know what we did. I'll say it now so that anybody who's listening or watching can. It's a really fabulous introduction to just put both of your hands on your heart, and then just take one hand open, look into the palm, and then bring it back to the heart, and then the other hand and look into the palm and back to the heart. And when we did this in the workshop, we said La ilahe illallah, La ilahe illallah, La ilahe illallah, La ilahe illallah, La, opening the hand, ilahe, bringing it back, illallah, at the heart, La, looking at the palm, ilahe, bringing it back, illallah. And La ilahe illallah means there is nothing in existence but God. nothing at all. And that brings us again back to the non-judgment and the compassion and honoring every stage of our journey and everyone else's journey. Yeah, and that movement is so simple. You can do it anywhere, seated anywhere. And then opening up to the whirling is really just an expansion of that, isn't it? Opening that circularity of movement through not just the hands and the heart, but the full body. And yeah, I used to do whirling workshops at festivals. This was exciting to me. And I even trained some dancers and had a DJ. We would whirl on stage and then go down into the audience and get everyone whirling. And what I found through that journey was that peak experience could open for people, and they could have a heart opening, an expansive connection, which was beautiful, and probably the start of many people's deeper inquiry. But the deeper inquiry couldn't proceed in that moment, in the festival setting, in the festival scene. So I stopped doing that and didn't teach whirling for a while. And now I'm teaching workshops again, and I'm just doing them the first Sundays of the month, so that there's a chance for regularity and a chance for returning to it. And that sort of peak experience can be contained within a day that can be showed up to again and again. So you can whirl at home once you experience it too. And so I really do encourage in this moment of time where we're at as a collective, for people just to trust themselves and try. If you want to whirl at home, Juliette, just clear some furniture away and put on some sacred music with a center to it. Any sort of mantra that really opens your heart, and go slow. You don't have to whirl like a whirlwind, and let it expand really slowly. Yeah, you'll love it. You'll love it. And so one day, if you want to come to a workshop, mine or somebody else's, yeah.
If someone does try it on their own, how do you set up the mind, the frame of mind? So I know, obviously when you're teaching mindfulness and meditation, the focus is on the breath, or like an expanded awareness. How do you set that up when you're doing the whirling?
That's a very good question. So the whirling is going to bring that expandedness in. So we're going to first anchor ourselves, and we anchor ourselves in our heart and then in the feet. So this La ilaha illallah, really coming into the heart with this, or even just taking the end of that, which is Allah, La ilaha illallah, Allah, the out breath and the in breath and the oneness which cannot be named. That's what Allah really means for me. Just even saying Allah, 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 with the hands on the heart, maybe doing a little bit of this movement with the intention that you're bringing the core, the anchor, the ground of beingness really alive in you. And then just slowly turning around, step by step, not a huge rotation, not a ballet turn where you spot, not like going full speed, just the hands on the heart, step by step, chanting some sacred words with the intention of grounding. You will find from that place an infinite expansion then opens without trying and without effort. It arrives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And are there, or I'm sure there are, what other practices that you practice on a weekly or a daily basis to, I guess, support your energy, your vibration, for you staying in a wholesome space?
Thank you for asking. That's also a really beautiful question. At the moment, I pray for an hour in the morning. And for me, this is just the amount of time that's needed. And I'm currently working with the names of God, the 99 names. And 99 stands for infinity. But the 99 are considered to be characteristics we really find most often in humans. So there's names for everything. There's names for intimacy, for strength, for focus, for passion, for forgiveness, even for like transforming greed, transforming jealousy, for safety, for protection, for gratitude. So it's recommended to work with one name at a time for like a week and just watch what that opens in your life and in your embodiment. And so I'm cycling through these names very slowly, working with them. And I find it to be incredibly transformational and grounds me in different vibrations. And I've actually been working with this particular way of praying for like 5 years now. So if I'm chanting, for instance, Yawadud in the morning, before I get out of bed is when I like to do it. Then I'm working with intimacy. And as we said, the understanding of love matures, the understanding of what intimacy then has an opportunity to really mature within me over the course of that day or that week, or if I choose to work with that name for a month, or if I'm working with Ya Shakur, this is the word for gratitude, then again, layers of gratitude can be revealed in my daily vibration, in my living. Forgiveness is one that I worked with for a long time, and many layers of forgiving the world for what it is. It really taught me a lot about suffering and understanding it, and opened deep wells of compassion in me. And right now, my inclination is so for stillness and peace. I'm working with Ya Razak, which is bringing in more fire and initiative to bring a balance to my stillness and new qualities to it. Yeah, there are many beautiful guides that people can find for working with the names. So trust yourself in your seeking, I would say.
Yeah. That's lovely. You have such a wonderful laugh as well. It's so light and bubbly.
Well, thank you for that. People say my laugh is like my father's laugh, so that's really special.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So you were inspired by the Sufi journey, and by also by the feminine unfolding of that. And how has it been being a woman, and how has that shaped your Sufi path?
Yeah, thank you. I'm really happy that you've touched on this, because again, our moment in time has really emphasized up until now the male master, the male guru, the masculine way of discipline. And that has been needed for humanity, or it wouldn't have been. But as I've really interrogated what is it to be a woman, I have found a real unfolding of gentleness and compassion to be essential. And for instance, I do my prayers in bed before I get up, and I give my body that rest. That's important. So I don't do my prayers sitting up on a brick with a candle burning in front of me. And I've given myself time. So one of my earlier Sufi teachers in the Turkish path, who has now passed, he said to me, Hannah, give it all the time you need. And I really took this to heart. So whirl for as long as you want to whirl. 4 years, that's all I did. He said, one day you'll want to work with the prayers. And one day I did. And suddenly, recently, the desire to actually understand music has opened in me. So teaching myself the songs, but as slowly as I need to. Over a year, I only learned 4, I haven't started reading the Quran yet. Actually, I did start a couple of weeks ago because I got really interested and the desire opened. There's a whole chapter on Mother Mary, the mother of Isa or Jesus. And I said, I can read that. And again, my whole life is here. I don't have to read it right away, step by step. That's been really important to the feminine unfolding. Also, the willingness to not fit in. And so there's so many varieties of how Sufism is practiced, from the ultra conservative, where your hair is covered, so not even a strand is showing, and you stay home and you have your children. This is a fine way to be, actually. For those who are living that, it is exactly what's needed for their development in this life, this moment. Yeah. But I didn't fit into that. Neither do I fit into, example, the style of Sufism, Qawwali Sufism from India, which is so flamboyant and so colorful, and they sing so loud, and the drumming is so fast, and this is too much for me. So giving myself permission to not fit in, but to understand that the unfolding of my path is coming from within, and it will be self-guided, and it will be a unique expression. That to me is feminine. It's beyond tolerance. It's true allowing. It's true acceptance. And when I accept myself and the complexity, the diversity, then I can accept everyone on this planet. And for me, this is why the feminine is rising now, because it's how we come to unity, is in that receptivity and that allowing. And then there's another dimension to the feminine, which we talked about in the workshop. And I wanted to bring that in because I remember that it really touched you. And this is the understanding of what it is to be a sacred vessel and a sacred embodiment. And we as women have this biology of the womb, which actually cannot be repeated outside of growing in a womb. We cannot create a womb in a lab. We cannot implant a womb through surgery. And we cannot birth a life without a womb. It is so truly emblematic of the mystery of God. And when we really honor what it is to be the bringer of life to this planet, whether we're a mammal, a bird, a fish, or a human. Everything comes through a womb, through an egg. When we really honor that we are the carriers of these eggs, and the only way that human life and the life of species, different species, exists is through us. Our understanding of sacredness unfolds for me at infinitely rich and magnificent levels of vibration, of color, of imagery, of sound. I understand that I am not only a rose, but every kind of flower. And women are like this. We bloom, we die, we bloom again, we're cyclic. We do this every month. Our menses are so sacred, and our bringing of life is so sacred. And this is where the wearing of the veil came from originally, to really honor that sacredness within us and to protect our energy field so that we can continue this life-giving process on a regular basis, whether it's going to be giving birth to a child or simply to the vibration of the day and holding the fire of the home within our being. And home is the physical home, but home is the spiritual home. And we as women carry that hearth fire. We carry it in our wombs, in our bellies. Its heat ignites the heart. So yes, we can be the hot and the heart. Have to be. Have to be really women and alive. Yeah, there's so many layers to that are still unfolding within me. It's truly mysterious, miraculous, divine, and I sort of bow to that sacredness.
Yeah. I think one of the things you said there, which is key, which is honoring our individuality. And when you were saying how, you do your prayers in bed, all I could think of was how as soon as I wake up, or basically my cats wake me up, and they won't let me stay in bed. There's no chance. They come and they sit on the pillow, or they sit on my chest, and they just meow. Well, if I won't get up, they'll go and rustle something in the room, make as much noise, or get into something where they know I don't want them, until they've got me out of bed. They're so funny. So for me, I'd have to feed the cats, then go back to bed.
Yeah, you're gonna find your way, Juliette.
Yeah, well, for me, it's feed the cats and then it's find that space, because then usually when I'm meditating, one or both of the cats will come, and one of them sits right in my cross legs, between my legs, and she'll sit right there. They're drawn to the energy. It's the same when I do yoga. Animals, and they just love the energy that you come into when you're in that space.
And this works for you. This is really wonderful to bring up, because we each have our natural qualities. My natural quality is gentleness and stillness, and it's also discipline. I started a daily practice when I was 16, and I've rarely had a day without it. If ever, I'll fit it in. And this isn't a matter of needing to tell myself, setting reminders ever. I have a natural inclination, and I can sit straight up, and I've had years where I've done that. So for me, it is important to let that go also, and allow myself to lay down.
Yeah.
And so each one of us is different.
Yeah.
And yeah, if we need to sit up, then we need to sit up. Absolutely. And if you're like me and you need to give yourself permission to lie down, then that's important.
Yeah. And I think that ties in with when you were speaking about the teachers, and there are so many teachers and teachings, and that's fantastic. And then it's coming in and saying, okay, like you just said, is it right for me to lay down? Is it right for me to sit up? Am I going to have to do this? Shall I do this now, or will I be okay doing this in the afternoon? And just to really tune into yourself. So, and I know that for my sister, for example, she has 3 children and a husband, and lots of people that I work with, they have families. So then it's making that space within that structure that they're living in, and rather than seeing that as an excuse, it's finding your space within that space, I think, and honoring yourself and making time for yourself. And like you say, sometimes we need to give ourselves permission. I find often with people who when we're talking about meditation or mindfulness, it's giving yourself permission to stop and do what we almost see nowadays as doing nothing. It's a lot more than nothing. It is nothing, but it's a lot more than nothing. But it's really giving yourself permission. And I think that's a huge step for a lot of people, is to give themselves permission to have these practices.
Absolutely. It's the most important part of being alive. It is. And so even if we only can get 15 minutes, but we are committed to that by giving ourselves permission for it to be that important.
Yes.
Yeah. It changes our relationship. Like you said, it is more than nothing, to divinity, to ourselves, and even to the family. It changes the way we are. It changes our embodiment, and we can step on our transformational journey.
Yeah.
I just feel called to share. I don't know why. Maybe somebody is listening. I feel that a lot of our behaviors in our culture that we do to take a break are asking for permission. So we'll take a cigarette break, we'll take a coffee break, we'll take a break to scroll our social media. But what we're actually doing is asking for permission to just step outside of life for 10 minutes. And if we could give ourselves permission to do that, but just be still. Wow, what can unfold?
Yeah, that's beautiful.
And 10 minutes just to whirl.
Yeah. I feel that that definitely resonates with me, and I'm sure it resonates with other people out there as well. And the language around it, even meeting up with someone, let's go for a coffee. More and more I've realized the language, and it's no, let's just meet up. Let's meet up and connect and just be with and hang out. But yeah, we get stuck in things, and we don't really realize consciously what we're doing, and what we're seeking is actually space or connection, and like you say, time out of that structure.
Yeah, absolutely. Connection to ourselves when we're alone, and connection to each other, which also seems like a luxury and a privilege these days. For many of us, for much of the time, scheduling in.
Yeah. So are there any parting messages that you would like to leave our audience with? And it can be anything related to your Sufism journey or somebody's self-mastery journey in general.
The message that's coming really simply and really clearly is just touch the earth. Touch the earth. Whether you're going to do that sitting down in meditation or on your dog walk or after you've done your whirling practice, just actually touch the house plants, touch the tree. Let the sun pour right into your eyes. In this way, we're embodying our connection to our environment and to our planet and to our earth, which is so collectively needed right now. So that situates the personal transformational journey within the whole.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, that already makes me feel really grounded and taking in a deep breath of fresh air, and so
I'm doing this for myself right now too.
So I'd like to invite our audience to go out and do that, and maybe you can share with us how that impacted you. So for now, we're gonna sign off and sign out. And so wonderful to speak to you, Hannah. And I look forward to connecting again soon.
Thank you so much, Julia. It's been such a joy.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you to Matt and Ken at Thermalux UK for offering their saunas as a space for me to record my podcast in. Soulful Saunas, stories of self-mastery.